Hello, CFBHC. This is MP Clem here. We've got Ace Wolf and Quasar from the Atlanta Falcons.
Hello.
What's up?
So we will be just kind of going over some stuff. There was a lot of speculation today about what this was going to be. I feel like maybe I misrepresented what it was. There's not going to be any major announcements. I'm not leaving the Colts, as was rumored to happen. We're just going to talk about the Falcons. I thought they were an interesting team just because, Sage left and they, finally got back to double-digit wins, missed the playoffs, and then some contract stuff happened. Achilles unhappy. So there's a lot going on with the Falcons right now. So I wanted to talk to them. So I guess we should just get right into it. So first question, obviously, is Sage left. You brought him in 2018 or 2019?
Yeah. 2018.
Yeah, 18.
So what did he mean, or what did he bring to the Falcons from a franchise building aspect?
So before then, for most people know this, but for context, we had gone 4-12 and 3-13 the previous 2 years, and I think a lot of it had to deal with we needed a lot of talent in certain places. Our defense was pretty bad, really.
Yeah.
It didn't have a lot of depth if you looked at us, and especially the front seven overall. It was just, looking back at some of those old teams, they were very thin, even to a point of just not really having just bodies. It was, we had maybe 4 players on defensive line for a 3-4 defense, and you can't do that whenever the sim has changed so much since whenever Randy and Killa were still here. So there's depth is a whole lot more important, and we just needed to be able to find good bodies to be able to put in there. And Sage really set the tone of trying to make sure that we fleshed out the rest of our team. It wasn't going to be like it was in the past. We had to modernize a lot of what we were doing. Another thing that he brought with him was a very structured vision for what he wanted to do. I will admit that a lot of what we did in the before him was a lot of, okay, we think this guy's going to be good, but a lot of times I think we ended up not necessarily piecing the pieces together. It was, okay, this is the best guy we can draft right here, right now, without thinking, where is he going to fit? He opened my eyes, especially to fit between quarterback and scheme, running back and scheme, which place on the depth chart the wide receivers go, all that kind of stuff. So I knew a little bit about it, but it really opened up more into what to do there and trying to figure out how to structure everything like that.
Yeah.
So mainly it was a lot of structure and a lot of, eyeing the talent in the draft to be able to flesh out a lot of important places.
Yeah, the scouting was definitely really important. He brought a lot of exactly who we want to target for if we want to do a certain thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're obviously looking for his new replacement. Again, we're not announcing the new replacement today, but what sort of qualities are you looking for? Sage is kind of had a really prestigious kind of reputation. He's helped build the Rams to what they are, helped build you guys to a double-digit win team. So what can you really look for to replace him with?
Well, the main thing I'm looking for is someone who can fit well with our team chemistry. Me and Quasar have been on the team for, I've been the owner since the Super Bowl. My first season was the Super Bowl winning season. Brought in Quasar.
I think that was right after that.
And it's mainly about, just getting to know us, making sure that we want to hear new ideas, but also we do want to bring a little bit of what Sage had before, just to be able to see what we can incorporate together to see where is there something that we missed? Is there something that, some unturned stone that we may be able to get out of this team. You know, we definitely did achieve quite a lot in the second year of a GM like that. But it was a lot of, can we find a whole lot of stuff to be able to push ourselves into that next level, getting into the playoffs instead of just barely missing out. And it's more of chemistry. It's more of, does he bring new ideas versus what has happened. But we're still doing that. We still have that process to go through.
Okay. So I guess the next question I want to ask is, I spoke briefly about Sage's reputation. Given such huge fills he's left to fill, can someone really fill those shoes? Or are you looking just to get someone completely unique and just try and forge a new path?
That is such a difficult question. Sage, me and Sage are definitely really close. We shit posted all the time, even before we really got before we were on the same team. But probably one of my favorite things to do on the site, whether or not he's on my team or not, is dabble in, who do we think is good, just discussing, especially the college football atmosphere. And I would love to find someone who I can do the exact same thing with. But I know that, I was a lot, Sage had been on the site, was a very, very active member, had been on the site for a long time. You're not necessarily going to get one of those types of guys who is always on, putting forth like super great media, because a lot of those guys are entrenched in their teams right now. It's very difficult to, there's no way I'm going to be able to do what UBL did and bring in Saluna. I can't just do that. That was a very unique case. But there's definitely room for a little bit of both. I'm definitely one that doesn't mind having someone who's ready to blaze their own path. I don't mind someone who's content to fill shoes. It's just we need to interview all the candidates and figure out who we think can do the best job and is going to be as active as what we would like, who has enough experience that I would trust to be able to make some of the crucial decisions that we have this upcoming offseason.
And I want to say we're still hiring, I think. Still open.
Still open. We have a handful of applications. Just if shameless plug here, but if you are still interested, just send me and Quasar a PM, and I'll see if I can get to it soon. The decision wouldn't necessarily have been quicker, but I would have been further along in the decision if I hadn't been at band camp and school starting this week. So I am already almost drowning. So I don't want to start anything like that just yet.
Okay, so let's get to some personnel conversations. Your progressions were one of the first ones to come out. And the big story, I think, for me was that Akili Wallace, who's really probably the star of your offense right now, is unhappy. We don't know exactly why that is. So what do you think you need to do to make him happy? Is it winning? Is it money? Is it, how you use him in the offense? What do you think that magic situation is to make him happy finally?
Well, I think, missing the playoffs by as close as we did probably made him a little unhappy. One or two more wins certainly would have helped a lot. Probably tweaking the game plan a little bit, giving him a few more touches. I mean, it's hard to get the exact amount of carries that I'm looking for with the game plans, but gonna try to tweak it a little more, get a few more players to get the right personnel for the scheme that looking to run for next season, and just moving it to giving him a little more chance to do what he can do, I think will make him happy.
Yeah, to bounce off of that, the very first thing whenever I saw this question is run the goddamn football.
Yeah.
That is that's what he's here to do, he's one of the best in the league at doing it. He is definitely not getting the ball enough in his mind. And I think that's a completely valid point. That's something that we need to work on. We're going to try and get him the goddamn football.
Okay, just to follow up on that, I know Salunas talked about it, I think Alien has mentioned it before, is that they feel that Achille has taken on a little too much of the workload already in his career, and that maybe his career could be shortened because of that. Is that something that you guys are concerned about if you try and give him more carries next year?
I'm definitely concerned.
His happiness with his long-term health?
I'm definitely concerned about it. A little bit. But I think that's mainly, there's a little bit of a disconnect here. At least from what I've noticed being on the team for so long, I've noticed that there are bounce back seasons with down seasons with bounce back seasons. Wilburn is that way. I mean, he bookended probably, I believe, like a 7 interception year and an 8 interception year, with one where he made the stat sheet like one time. So, and Wilburn is still one of the best corners in the league. He's one of the old guard of that elite level corners in the league. But there are times whenever, for an entire season, he may not make the stat sheet a little bit more. Other guys will step up and do a little bit more than what he would, even though he's still doing a great job. I've seen that also with Achille. There was, his rookie year. He did even better his second year. Had a drop his third year. Came back and was, I think, definitely in the running for MVP last year. And then this year he took a little bit of a step back. Not necessarily all on him. But, if he, assuming he comes back, I really want him to. That's still not necessarily on the books yet, but we would definitely, that is our goal, is to get him back on the team. But not necessarily guaranteeing that he would have a bounce back year, but I would hope that we can try and maximize the most that we can get out of him.
And if you look at the carries he had last season, he's barely top 10, and a lot of those people in front of him are actually even longer in the league than he is. I think he's got more time left in him.
I think so too. He's had very little injury history. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was Henson has had some injury history in the past.
He had an ACL tear.
He had an ACL tear, and he still was, top 3 rushing? And you can't have, I'm actually going to look it up real quick just because I'm curious.
And Achille had a -1 this progression, but, 96 to 95, not really a big deal.
That's not the end of the world. And also, just want to shout out to Rome real quick with the fantastic suggestion of moving our quarterback to defensive end. Way to go. You have definitely not made the cut for the Falcons GM.
Well, that's bad for you because I did hire him in the chat, so he is your new GM.
Yeah.
So I apologize for that.
It doesn't matter. He'll only be GM for like 2 months before he rage quits.
Yep.
Oh, shit. Okay. Let's move on.
Gonna pull a mooch.
All right, let's move on. So Achille rejected a contract extension, and so did RC Roan and Gino Chiavarini. I'm just going to guess that's how it's pronounced. Your kicker. All three of those guys are 90-plus overall. They've been in the league for at least 4 or 5 years each. So what do you guys need to do? Do you think they'll all three be back in Atlanta next season, or do you think maybe you got to let one walk?
I would very much like for all three to be back, but it all depends on how much room we think we have to bring them all back. I'm not going to give a ranking of, who I think has the most likelihood, but Gino will definitely hold a special place in my heart. Was one of the very first. He was a part of the first draft that I really got super involved in, and he's definitely a phenomenal kicker. I would love to bring him back. He's, at least in my opinion, my Justin Tucker. They both went to Texas, that kind of thing. But I think we can work out the money for Gino. That's, he's a kicker. They're not necessarily all that expensive, but, and he still is a very, very good kicker. There's no doubt about that. RC Roan, he's a Super Bowl MVP. He deserves all the money that he can get, and he had a phenomenal season this year. And I think he still has some gas left in the tank. I think it's definitely worth trying to get him back. And we've already discussed Achille. I would love to have them all back, but it's just, are we going to be able to make the money work? I will not comment on whether or not what our plans are for trying to bring them back, or if we think we can. That's still something that we have to work out, and that's a little bit down the road.
Yeah, I will say if Roan goes, we have someone who we just picked up who's doing pretty decently so far, so wouldn't be the end of the world.
He had a +3 progression and wasn't happy for some reason, so
yeah.
He got to sit on the bench.
Mario Ruff, yeah. Probably just not playing.
Mario Ruff apparently is just like super biting, chomping at the bit to try and start in an all
start ahead of Roan, which is
Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we move on. So we're talking contracts, and one thing we should talk about is AJ Jefferson, touchdown Jesus or interception Jesus, depending on who you are. You picked up his option for his 5th year. I think he's on the books for something like $14.5 million next year now. So do you think that'll be his last year, or do you think he can work out to a long-term position with the Falcons?
I think it depends on how he does this season. Yeah, I think the injuries have been a little annoying. I'd like to see him go through the whole season. He had a pretty decent play this season, but just not getting through the whole season, having us go to the backup, is a bit annoying.
My stance on this is we picked it up because that's what I said from the very beginning. That I felt that especially early on we didn't necessarily use AJJ the way that we should. And we definitely need to give him a fair shot. He has shown that he can be at least a viable quarterback in the league. You can have an argument about draft position and all that. There's an entire controversy with that, and I'm not getting into that.
He's probably the most controversial player in the whole league.
Maybe. I'll also do with draft position, but anyway. With AJJ, I've said it from the very beginning that we were going to pick it up because I want to give him a fair shot. I want to see where it's going to go. And if he performs well enough, then I think he could, he may be a Falcon his whole career. But if, he doesn't play well, he's just like any other player. He does not, he's our starting quarterback, but that doesn't mean that he's, if he doesn't play well, he'll get benched. And that's just the way positions work. So, and then he won't be back. But it all depends on how well this next season goes. He's in that contract. He's in that crucial contract year. And in his defense, he has definitely improved year to year. It's just that we're still trying to surround him with enough talent. And I think we're finally getting to that point, especially with 2 rookies who are coming off of, one of them, I believe, a +1 progression from Tyrus, and a very surprising +5 from our 6th-round rookie tight end from Arizona State, who I cannot think of his name off the top of my head. Fantastic. Yeah, Irwin. That's right. And he seems to have found some really good chemistry with Irwin, which is great. And if it turns out that, he and Irwin can blaze a path and, he progresses a little bit more, AJJ might be, still be the quarterback of the future for the Falcons. But we will see what happens.
Irwin had 7 TDs this season. Pretty good for a 75 rookie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, bouncing off of that then, given AJJ's injury history and, questions about maybe his performance, are you planning on bringing back Blake Shell to be his backup, or are you going to roll with Greg Schitt?
I have one, a real response and then also shitposty response. In case you have not voted already, you should definitely go and vote for in the Pro Bowl for Blake Shell to be the NFC quarterback representative for the Pro Bowl, because he has definitely shown that he is a fantastic quarterback. And by that, I mean, I really don't want to see him back that much. No. I think he regressed. And it seemed like all I wanted to do was just say, fuck it, we're going deep. And I'm not very happy with that.
Yeah.
I expected more out of someone who at least had a serviceable year with Houston last year.
Yeah, I expected him to be serviceable, and it was below that.
But we beat the Browns.
So, moving on now. You had some retirees I think, to me, were a bit shocking. So I guess I'll ask you, were you shocked by Richard Myers and Larry Hadley, who were both starters for you, Myers at fullback and Hadley at offensive guard? Was it shocking to you that they just kind of decided to retire now?
Myers was absolutely the biggest surprise, because he was in a career year. I mean, his stats were off the chart this year. And I will read them to you. In 2 games, he had 2 attempts for 3 yards and 2 touchdowns.
There you go, right there.
I mean, he's automatic. Like, there's nothing you can say. No, I'm kidding. Myers, it makes sense. He was in his 6th year in the league and had pretty much stagnated at an 80 overall. He was a good fullback, and I enjoyed having him on the team. That one didn't really surprise me that much. I can kind of see where he's coming from for that. Larry Hadley, on the other hand, he was definitely more of a surprise. I kind of expected, if anything, he would regress instead of just flat out retiring. But that definitely makes our off-season plans a little bit different. But that's more of, if there's anyone who's looking at our roster and sees, oh, hey, a starting guard just retired, yeah, that's probably, you don't have to be a GM or really know much about anything to be able to just go, oh yeah, they're probably going to be changing their plans there a little bit.
Yeah.
So with them retired Ricky Bradley, who wasn't a starter, but he was probably a good depth piece there at the defensive end position. So with these 3 guys, I could just mention off-season plans probably changing, but how much did they change? Because you go from an 85 overall guard to a 75. You have no fullback. And your next defensive end after your starters is John Jones, who's a 68. So obviously you have 3 holes that you have to fill that you didn't have to fill before.
True. John Jones is a West Virginia legend, though. He was very good in college. Ricky retiring, he was a good rotational play whenever Eric Jennings, our previous first-round draft pick, went down for a little bit. He had some pretty good play there. That was very good for him to get that rotational play. And Bradley, I think, he was great for us whenever we needed him.
Yeah, he was decent.
And we wish him all the best. But that'll definitely be a point of concern. That way we don't have, as much as John Jones, we like him in camp and stuff. I'm not quite sure he's necessarily ready to just go out there on Sunday and fill in for Eric Jennings if we need him to.
Some of it we can address in the draft. Might look for a trade possibly. I mean, when we get the new GM, then we'll see what our plans are. But I think some of it we can definitely address in the draft. Some of the more depth stuff is not too hard. The
we also have
line will be a bit more difficult.
Yeah, and we have a little bit more. We have a few depth pieces that we can try and trade around.
Yeah.
We have we're probably running, maybe a wide receiver or 2 more than what we might want. Maybe a linebacker or so,
Yeah.
We have a few pieces that we can move around to try and grab a depth guy.
Maybe a couple Virginia defensive tackles you might want to move to the Colts.
Any
Who
free
knows?
what position?
Defensive tackle.
You guys have some pretty good linemen, don't you?
Who, Virginia?
Yeah.
Yeah, we pump them out pretty good.
I will say I really wanted. Oh, never mind. I was thinking of someone else. Thinking of a different ACC school.
Fantastic.
Isn't Kay Anderson unhappy? Yeah. I know
He's not unhappy. He's getting ready to retire.
Yeah, I made a -2 on him, so.
Kay Anderson is gone.
Yeah.
That's not a secret.
We've had
Okay.
we were kind of rotating them out for a while until we found who's the best, and wasn't him. So that's why he's mad.
Just a couple more questions.
Kay Anderson's up there with Blair Kopay in terms of my like of him on the Falcons.
Yeah.
So I guess my next question, I guess you guys maybe address a little bit, but what do you think you need to do this offseason? You know, you were just outside the playoffs. What do you have to do to get back into the playoffs since you haven't been back since you won the Super Bowl, correct?
Believe so. The main thing I would say that we need to address is definitely making sure that the offense runs as smoothly as possible. Our defense was, suffocating at times.
Defense was really good. It was just offense can't really provide many points at all.
And I think it could be scheme, it could be personnel, could be trying a combination of both of trying to get that right puzzle piece to click. I personally don't think that our team is. We're not built to be a Rams or that other team in the division or the Packers, who are offensive juggernauts. We're definitely on the opposite side of that, where we try and slow the game down. But we need to be more efficient on offense and try and put up a little bit more points.
Okay, so I guess my last question is, looking forward, short term, 2 to 3 seasons, where do you see you guys ending up 2 or 3 seasons? Do you see yourself back in the playoffs? Do you think you're going to stagnate? Where's this franchise going?
I think we can get into the playoffs. I mean, we were really close, and progressions on the offensive side of the ball are not great, but defense was still okay progression-wise, and if we can just work in the draft and through a couple trades, I think we should be able to get there. We're close now. We can probably hold at the position we're at for next season, I'd say, and I mean, we're really close. Just got to roll the dice a couple more times and get lucky.
3 straight Super Bowl. No, I'm kidding. No, I think we can fight for a playoff spot. We're definitely going to be biased in this conversation.
Yeah,
we definitely think that our roster is put together fairly well. The one thing I will say is that a good chunk of our roster is on that old guard side. So
especially your secondary.
Yeah, especially the secondary is, getting up there in years. And
I mean, at least Darius is pretty young. So
yeah, and the main thing that we have to try and figure out is how do we keep it all together? Because there's only so many times where you can just patch it and try and keep it going. But we definitely have a few areas of need that we can see. I think a lot of it is going to be, are we going to be able to fill the needs that we have, or are we just going to be able to try and mask what we have as needs to try and keep going? Because we've had to do that a few times, but I think we're in a good spot. It's going to be difficult to click into that next step, but I think we can definitely do it with smart moves.
Yeah, I think we just got to get the game plan to exactly the right thing. Been kind of working around with it and getting more to where I want it to be, and getting some of the personnel to fit into the right areas. Obviously, the defense worked pretty well, so not going to need to work on that much. Just getting the offense to have the right balance that I'm wanting it's difficult.
Okay, I think that does it for us. Thank you guys for being here and answering my questions and talking with us. I think this was really cool. I think a lot of people got to
Yeah.
see a good insider perspective of how the Falcons run and how you guys think. So I think with that, we're going to end this right at about half an hour, which is perfect.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Thanks, guys.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
No problem.